Welcome to the Marketing Intern Spotlight. A marketing intern is a listener who's spreading our message authentically. Hear their story, their passion, and their journey. Enjoy.
Lisa Evanson, welcome to the Backpocket Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I've never gotten up this early on a Saturday.
Ooh, it's not even that early.
And it's 12:05
Time
p.m.
is subjective, Andrew.
Ooh, I love that statement right off the bat.
Thank you.
Theoretical. We're getting right into it.
That
Real existential.
that was the best way to start a podcast. Time is, what did you say?
It's
Subjective.
subjective.
My name is Lisa, and time is subjective. But hey,
Drop the mic. End of the podcast.
drop the mic. That was
Yeah.
it. That's all we needed.
Boom.
Thank you for coming on the
I'll
podcast.
unscrew
Lisa.
this so I can drop it.
Yeah. Let's give our marketing interns, so our marketing interns are our listeners and our learners of the podcast. Let's give them a little background of Lisa so they can kind of vibe out to who Lisa is.
Absolutely. Who am I? Okay, my name is Lisa. I'm a girl.
You're a woman.
I'm a woman. Yes,
Yeah.
not women. I am 26, going on 27. My birthday's in 10 days, and I really like cash.
What's your Venmo, real quick?
I think it's just Lisa-Evanson.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes for anyone that's
Thank
interested.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
cool.
She likes cash.
I like cash. Because my rent just went up. Anyways, I digress. I work in advertising. Prior to that, I was in the startup world. And then prior to that, I was a student at University of Minnesota. Go Gophers. And I'm born and raised here, with the exception of one semester in Hawaii and one summer in Cleveland, Ohio.
Wow, the Rainbow State.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
What part of Minnesota are you from?
Brooklyn Park, right on the border with Brooklyn Center. And my parents split early, so I was BP, BC all the way. Went to
Okay.
Champlain Park.
Gotcha. Sam, you know those areas?
North side,
Yeah.
Yo.
Oh.
He's our local that keeps us rooted.
Yeah, because
love it.
Andrew.
We're neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mm.
Wow. So yeah,
Wait,
Sam
where
knows
did you
everyone
grow,
from
Where
here.
did you grow up, Sam?
Maple Grove.
Oh, I worked there for a summer at Boston Pizza. Yeah. And now it's a Redstone.
Oh, yeah.
He's familiar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know
Yeah,
Redstone,
that's a great place to eat. I love that place.
I've actually never been.
I haven't
I'm
either.
like, you took my old job. Yeah.
But anyways, so Andrew's from Chicago. I'm from Denver. We're not really tied to Minnesota, but Sam
We're learning.
is our root. He's our connection. He understands the area, and
He knows
Twin-
everyone.
Twin
Yeah.
City Spirit Guide.
Yes.
yeah, pretty much.
Mhm.
But in addition to your advertising and your other life, how I
Mhm.
met you
Mm-hmm.
and how you got associated with the Back Pocket comedy.
Stand-up comedy, baby.
Mm.
So we got to talk about that.
We
and
do.
Really, probably start there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what the irony is? I didn't even think to mention that when you were like, give me an intro.
Yeah. You're a comedian.
And it's funny. That's funny because I'm still at this point where I'm new and I have this like need to feel like not a need to be humble, but it's not yet an identity of I am. It's something I do.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, good
but
point.
yes, it does take up a good chunk of my free time,
Yeah.
and it's a struggle with the balance to this day and everything else going on in my life. But yes, love stand-up comedy. That's how I met Decky. Thanks to our friend Giselle Ugardi.
Yep.
Yeah.
She DM'd me. She was like, hey, I have this buddy who wants to try stand-up for the first time. Can I send him your way? And my first thought, I was like, dude, if Giselle approves and they're friends, I know he's gonna be a cool guy. And then when I met you, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like a permanent friendship.
Yeah. That's
He
awesome.
doesn't know yet, but he signed a lifelong contract.
Yeah. I loved when you first reached out to Declan and you gave him like this great piece of advice of like how to go about your first performance, and he just didn't do it. Didn't follow your.
What was the advice I gave
Yeah.
you?
Dude, I was so nervous. So you said like, "Oh, you're going up at Acme for your first time ever?" Acme's like the biggest comedy place to go on Mondays in the Twin Cities. It's the biggest place. It's the place. And you told me like maybe you should try like going somewhere to warm up at a place that's easier and like more
Welcoming crowd.
welcoming crowd,
Yeah.
and then try your stuff at Acme.
Yeah.
And that was you told me that the day that I was going, and I text Andrew, I'm like, hey dude, like I might call this whole comedy thing off tonight. Like
Yeah.
Lisa gave me this whole like kind of how you should do it, and like I might just reschedule to like Thursday later that week. And Andrew's like, no dude, you're ready, go do it.
And that's
And
what
so I was like,
loved
all
about
right,
you.
let's do it, dude. Like and that just like kicked me over the edge, and I went.
Mhm.
I remember when I told you that, I was worried I was going to kill your momentum because like even though we hadn't met yet, I just could totally get that through the texting and preparing for it. And the reason it wasn't entirely that Acme is such a big deal. It was more like it's hard to get on at Acme.
Yeah.
So maybe save it until it's really buttoned up, and then you can really, really shine. And then you're not going up your first time, you know, and you still did really well. But that way you're not like waiting another 6 months. Although I did find apparently a little secret is they really are all about consecutive signups there.
Yep.
So it took me 8 months to get on. So like you, my first time was at Acme. However, it was in 2011.
Whoa.
And then I never did it again. Well, I did it once more. We don't talk about that time. It was the TBS comedy competition at the U.
Okay.
And it was just the worst experience ever. And literally not a soul came up because all my sorority sisters were at an exchange, hanging out with the frat guys. So I walked alone to Kaufman Union. I was the only other girl in the lineup with the exception of like this like 35-year-old, and her whole bit was how she's technically still a student but just like never finished, something like that. And it was super toxic, and all the guys were competitive, and I'd been watching enough YouTube material where I was like, oh, at least half those guys stole their material. And then they made fun of me after, and it was all audience vote based, and it wasn't recorded. I don't remember what I talked about.
Dang.
So I walked home. So we don't talk about that, even though I literally just did on
talked
air.
about it,
But
yeah.
So my first time ever doing stand up were those 2 times in 2011.
And in 2011, the first time you did it was because, was it a bear?
Yeah.
Or what was the reason why you went up again?
I was doing, like, you know how that you have your gen ed classes. I was doing, like, this gen ed art class, and our final project was, quote, art in the community.
Okay.
Like, some people literally sat on a park bench and were like, yeah, I watched strangers go by. Like, it could have been anything. It's subjective, as is time.
Love
And
it. Full circle.
So my thing, I was like, I've always wanted to go to a comedy show. I'll do that. And I was like, well, wait, I'm a broke freshman in college. I should go to a free open mic night. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to go to an open mic night, I might as well do the open mic night. And I remember telling that to my old creative director at my old agency. And he was like, I think you made a leap of logic not a lot of people make there. But that's me. I'm like, if I'm going to do something, I need to optimize it. It's the same thing like when I travel, I like stress over the planning because I'm like, it's a, you know, once in a lifetime or at least short term, midterm. I need to optimize this. So that was my attitude. I was like, well, I might as well do it if I'm going to go. And being in a sorority at the time, it was a, quote, big deal because you could only take off one formal dinner a semester, and those were on Mondays. So I had to get, like, special permission to miss formal dinner and meeting. And then word kind of spread, and they were like, you really shouldn't go alone. You should have support. So they allowed one other sorority sister to go with me. And we just, I've never been so nervous in my life up until the first time I did stand-up 8 months ago.
Okay, so that was a good 7 years in between.
7 years.
And then you got up. What was the draw to get you back into comedy? Why were you like, all right, it's time to get back up there again 7 years later?
That's so funny you ask. I didn't think about it much in those 7 years. It was just like a fun thing to mention at parties. And I loved having that in my back pocket. It was like that fun thing to like whip out if conversation dwindled, you know. But what sparked it was my buddy Nick Hallett. He was like, yo, dude, I really want to try stand up. Do you like have a recommendation and do you want to support me? He didn't even like ask for help with the material. He's just like, do you want to like be there for when I do it? And I was like, yeah, you should go to Sisyphus. I had just discovered Sisyphus. Like a coworker introduced me to it. And I was like, and you know, Declan, you've been seeing how poppin' it is now. It wasn't always like that.
I know it wasn't. Yeah.
It's caught traction. Like, huge. And I think the winter draws people inside.
Oh, yeah.
But anywho, seeing him perform and then seeing other people, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but seeing them like not crushing it gave me confidence to be like, oh, this is a place where like you don't need to crush it and people are just doing their thing. Why don't I do it again? So ask me another question while I take a sip of water.
Yep. So you got back into comedy 7 months ago, and then you got back up. That first time, was that an experience that you're like, okay, you see how welcoming it is for your friends, but also now you feel welcomed into it after doing it again? That community is it's an open community. You see people fall on their face, but at the same time you see people crush it, and everyone's like, all right, man, you got to get back up. It's just the reality.
Yeah, it's equal parts rewarding to witness. what's funny is you get to know these people and they really do start to feel like family. I have 2 older brothers, and a lot of the ratio of male to comics or male to female comics, mostly dudes, but it's like almost kind of a comfortable space for me because it feels like an extension of my brotherhood that I always had growing up.
Yeah.
And what's funny is someone will be quote unquote bombing, but you'll hear all the comics in the back laughing their butts off because we know them. It's like seeing a family member do, like Kelly Berger. He's my favorite person to see go on at Acme because the audience is like, what's happening? And we're in the back like dying.
Dude, that's how it was at Sisyphus. I went this past Thursday and we were all just dying because Corey was gone. The guy who runs Sisyphus, he was gone and had some replacement, and the MC literally forgot what the order was and just saw one of the comics in the crowd that he knew was going on. He was like, all right, Tom, you're up. Let's get it going. And Tom's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I'm fourth. He's like, and like he came up after, like Tom went with it. Tom was like, all right, let's do this. And like Tom did well. And then after he gets up, he's like, yeah, sorry, I like totally forgot the list. Like, and just made this whole comedy bit about it the whole night. It was so funny.
Was it another comic?
Yeah. His name was like Chris, maybe. I don't know. He's an MC.
Oh, Maddock.
Yes.
Chris Maddock. Yep.
Yeah.
Love that dude.
Mm.
Anyways, but again, to your point, it's all family, dude, and it's so cool to like. I show up now at Sisyphus every week, and you talk about the consistent grind. Like you showed up to Acme every single week, every Monday for 8 months, and you didn't go.
It wasn't every single one.
Okay, but like pretty damn close. Like let's just put it this
Yeah.
way: you were committed to show up to that place every day or every Monday,
Mm-hmm.
not get on most times. And you had that one opportunity, which was last week.
Well, that was like just triggered Eminem. You got one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One chance, one opportunity,
Yeah.
one moment to fail.
Mom spaghetti. Mom spaghetti.
Let's take a break, look at the lyrics, come back.
We'll come back. Yeah.
But to my point is like you really got to be dedicated and really got to love like the comedy atmosphere and like you really, and that's why when that love's involved, like now you're hanging out with all these people who also love it, and now you're just shooting the crap with them every single day, shooting the shit.
Yeah.
With guys that are all in come from all these different walks of life, and they're here to just try and make people laugh.
And I think you just hit on something that really, really resonated with me. I was listening to this podcast. It's called Let's Talk About Sets.
Cool.
I found it on like Reddit. I Googled like good comedy podcasts to listen to. Because I wanted to find one that wasn't like the people entertaining. I wanted to find one where they like talked about on the back end and like the science of it. So this one's really great for that. And I might butcher it, and I forget the guy's name and I forget who he's quoting. I tried to Google it, couldn't find it, but the quote is, life is not about finding your passion. It's about finding that problem you are obsessed with solving over and over again.
Mm.
And that's comedy because that problem is the formula of the joke, and figuring that out and being in your living room wondering, is this going to work, and tinkering with it. And the longer you do comedy, the more you see it mathematically. And that it's like the formulas, it's to the point where like I'll jot down in my notes like a good formula, and I'm like, okay, now I need to fill in the blanks. And then when I think of content from a story, like a life event, people, not until recently have I heard someone blatantly say like, oh, Lisa, your style on stage is conversational.
Okay. That was going to be one of my questions. What would you say your style of comedy is? And that conversational, talking about everyday kind of experiences, or how would you hone that in?
What's funny is it's not necessarily every day. Like I really try and hit on those weird life events that maybe other people haven't gone through, but it's the little things within that life event that they can relate to.
Okay.
And I always try and find like a silly lining to it. Like before I started, or I guess, in those 3 weeks, leading up to my first time, I was like, yeah, what do I think my style will be? And I told myself observational, kind of like the Jim Gaffigan and all that stuff. And yeah, it was just interesting to hear people be like, oh, you're a conversational like style comedian.
Mm-hmm.
You get up there and they're like people, you draw them in. There's just something about you that's kind of like girl next door, friendly. They want to listen to what you have to say.
Yep.
And that was really empowering to be like, oh, I didn't know I had that draw. And people talk about finding your voice, and you'll hear like famous comedians say like, oh, at a minimum it takes like 5 years to find your voice. And so I'm by no means there. I'm taking like incremental baby steps to getting there. Like for example, if I'm writing and I notice like a good plug that might be kind of like a good political jab, deep in my veins, that's not me. Like I'm not argumentative. I am still I like grew up very, very, very conservative. I'm still in this phase of finding out like who am I in comparison to this upbringing, that kind of thing. So it's something I try and hold sacred to myself, and I'm still like quote unquote figuring out and like balancing that with like, you know, my Christianity, all that kind of thing. So that said, I don't really bring that to the stage, and I like to keep it lighthearted. And when people go to a show, like I don't want to like be berating them with an opinion or something. And honestly, I'm just like not that hard opinionated about a lot of things.
You're a conversationalist. That's the best part.
Right. Like I love to entertain. I've always been the friend making people laugh. And so that said, it was really cool to hear that affirmed. And so there have been times where like I've experimented on stage, like I said, a political jab, and it's like flat. And I think it's because they know it contrasts with like the vibe that I give off. And some of my biggest laughs are actually when I ad lib. And what's funny is I have never wanted to recreate those ad libs because I'm afraid they won't come off the same as when they genuinely were.
Sure.
Although at Acme, I did. I tried to recreate the ad lib I had done at Sisyphus the week before, which was when I said, I was talking about, I'm like, okay, so my boyfriend, he's Norwegian, as in he's actually from Norwegia. And that gets the big, and their laugh was so like rip roar. I hadn't used it in a while. It was like one of my first sets I ever did. And it was one of those things that like as I was writing it was so natural. I'm like, this is stupid, but I'm gonna do it. And it had this like rip roar laughter that it on stage I was so taken aback that I said, God, I can't believe that still gets a laugh every time. And then they laughed again. I was like, I'm not even dating him anymore. I just use him for jokes. They laughed again. I was like, we broke up last summer. They laughed again. And then I have since used a tag like, he moved back to Norwegia, you know, and you're dying, Declan. I love this so much.
It's about silent laughing too.
It's about silent laughing.
Because you want everyone else to laugh.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear everyone just hear your laugh. But dude.
But what's funny, I tried to recreate that at Acme, but the night I got on was the polar vortex night, literally negative.
And you
40.
have to talk about it.
Right. Yeah. No, like no one did. That's what was funny. But point is,
it was an inside joke.
Inside joke. So you guys had to witness that.
That was tough.
So
Bad podcasting.
What's funny is Acme, 99% of the time, it's like packed to the walls. I can never remember how many they seat. It's at least 200.
Yeah, 200. 200 sounds right. 250 maybe.
Yeah, 250 I think tops. And it was like half capacity. And you can still have a half room and like great laughter, but it was kind of like lackadaisical, you know. I don't know if that's a word, but and so when I got on stage, like I did fine. Like the recording from the back of the room sounds like I'm bombing. You can't hear their laughs, but my recording on my phone from on the stage, I'm like, oh, okay, that was fine. But I recreated I can't believe that gets a laugh every time. Ooh, I'm not even dating anymore. I use them for jokes, and it was just like, oh fuck, that
didn't feel the same.
Yeah, it was unnatural. And like another comic called that out. He's like, oh, I would tweak that. And I explained to him, I was like, I was just trying to recreate something that happened last week. And he's like, maybe don't try and do that like the next week at Acme.
Yeah.
But it was a tight 3 minutes, and it just felt the best.
Okay, so you're hitting on something that I've been talking about for a while, or just been thinking about, and it's this idea of comedy. When you boil it down, is something that you're passionate about, that you want to show on stage. So like, I'll think of something, I'll write something down, a life event will happen to me, etc., and I'll find something funny in that story, and then I'll write it down, I'll record myself saying it, and then I got to go up on stage, and no one has any context, barely know who I am, and I have to convince that that's funny. And so comedy a lot of times relies heavily on what you are believing in and what you're confident in at that time and place. Like you said, you were ad-libbing, just kind of building on that story that was yours, and you were like passionate about it at that time. So like for me, like if I were to recreate the Uber bit, like, I don't know if that would make any sense. Like, I'm not passionate about that story right now, but right now I'm on to this climate change bit that I've been working on for 3 weeks, and I just, like, think it's so funny, and it's cold outside, and, like, I'm just working, and I showed Andrew part of it, and I showed Andrew, like, one of my bits, and that was the last part, and he's like, I think you got some with that climate change thing. So I took it and ran with it. Now I'm running with it currently, and, like, I care about that, and now I'll ad-lib on stage with all the things that I've thought about, and I bet that's the part that'll be funny.
Yeah, like writing on stage.
Yes, writing on stage, perfect.
A friend, he gifted me some books. They're like from like the 90s or something. They're really old, but like what those comics are talking about still applies. And
sure.
Wow, I'm totally blanking on her name. She's an icon. Anyways, she was talking about how, or like it was a Q&A style, and one of the questions was like, did you ever write on stage? And she was like, I only wrote on stage. And that blew my mind because that takes such cojones to do.
Yeah.
It's so vulnerable. Like, I can like, I'm amazing in my living room, you guys. Like, I have my fake microphone. It's my vibrator. And because it's shaped like one.
Oh my gosh.
It's shaped just like one. But it gives the right effect, right? You gotta like recreate it as best as you can.
Do you take it off like a stand? So like you're walking up there and it's like just like you're
I take it out of its silk case. Most microphones aren't purple.
So yeah, so when you envision yourself walking up there and actually at Acme, you're envisioning the purple mic just because it's what you do.
I can't believe I just shared that.
That is so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! Now that's gonna be stuck in my head now when I see you on show like Sisyphus next week.
Someone's like, you should talk about that on stage. I'm like, no.
No. You talk about that on the podcast, not on stage, Dan.
There's so much I don't share on stage because, okay, kind of tapping back into a serious note, like my friends and especially my family, my mom specifically, comes to a lot of my shows, and I am always very cognizant of like how what I'm saying, does that align with my character, or not just my character, but what I stand for, like when like as a Christian, right?
Yeah.
And was really cool to watch Jeff Asmus at his show because he's like, as his opener said, he's like, oh, Jeff thinks if you don't believe in God, you're stupid. But Jeff talks about like it's clear that he is a Christian on stage. He like literally brings up a Bible and like has jokes, but they are like rip roar, way past PG-13 appeal. Like he's a funny, witty guy that is not playing it safe and not being this like all holy. Like he's the exact opposite. I don't even know how to describe him. He's just like, he can sear through any joke like with pure wit, and he's so funny and it's so effortless. So that was eye-opening for me to be like, oh, you can still be a Christian and like get wild on stage, you know? Because a lot of people tell me, they're like, you play it really safe, and I'm like, but part of that is I'm also trying to break this stereotype of what it means to see a woman on stage.
Yes.
And
I love the way you pronounce woman, by the way.
Thank you. Singular. Just wait till I get plural.
Yeah.
Wait till we start talking about women.
Did we even record that? Are we
No,
inside
we did.
joking?
Yeah, it's an inside joke. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah.
So let's address it
Okay.
now that we've already talked about it. So you said when you were in Hawaii studying abroad, is that right?
It's technically not abroad. On exchange.
Oh, sorry to blow it. I've studied abroad a few times, but we won't get to that.
Slick brag.
Yeah. Anyways, is that what? Okay, so so you were getting made fun of because how Minnesotans pronounce woman.
Yeah, so we say singular woman and plural woman the same. And then I got called out by my friend Julia. She's like, dude, it's women. And she's like, say it with me. Women. And then, like, I literally had to say it a few times before she's like, all right, you got it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And then I can't stop listening now that I'm home and it's been 4 years, 5 years. I can't stop listening to how people say it.
It's ingrained.
So maybe we should get a vote. We should like, I don't know how you guys
We'll pull
do this.
that.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll pull that.
Pull it.
Yeah.
The great debate.
Do you say woman or women, plural?
Sorry for that tangent. I had to address
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, we had to
we'll
address
circle
it.
it back. Rein it in. Okay,
Rein
where
it in.
were we?
That's our job. Anyways, Andrew, you got it.
Yep. So we were talking about how you now are on stage, balancing kind of like how you want your values and what you were brought up in, and bringing that on and showing how women in comedy should be portrayed, but could be portrayed. Like this is the reality. Like this is just another person up on stage.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women. I'm having like a crisis now. A lot of women feel the need to be like, make it known and like talk about, and that's fine. It's more just like, I'm not gonna get on there and talk about my pussy. Like that's just not me. And I might have a joke related to that, but like the word I think of is like, I like to be silly, and it's the same reason why I'll never be the girl with like the perfect makeup or the perfect hair or the wardrobe. Like working agency life can be like, I'm self-conscious because I'm like, dude, I also don't care enough to be like hip. I'm more just like, I want to be comfortable and just do me. And again, with the older brother thing, like I'm just not a girly girl. And not to say that if you talk about your private parts, you're a girly girl. What I'm saying is like, I've never felt this need to like own own my womanhood, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I'll never forget, I read this article about, God, it's only because I'm thinking about it on air. I'm blanking. SNL. I will think of her name later.
Kate McKinnon?
No. She's the African-American woman.
Yep, I know who you're talking about.
In charge.
Mm-hmm.
What's her name again? Wow. Okay. I was just telling the story to someone yesterday. Anywho,
We'll come back to it.
She said in an article, I think I Googled like how to make it in comedy as a female. And
I love that though. That
right?
You can do that. That's
yeah.
awesome.
It's just to like, no.
Okay.
You will.
worries.
It'll come to me tonight when I'm sleeping.
He's learning how to become a producer. That when someone says, "Look something," what's it? Leslie
Yeah,
Jones.
Leslie Jones.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Attaboy,
Sam.
Sam. You're
That's
learning.
You're
so-
learning, dude. Good work, Sam.
Embarrassing. I couldn't think of her name. But she said a lot of women get on stage and they feel the need to be like, I am a female. Hear me roar. And she's like, just be funny.
Mm-hmm.
Just be funny. And I was talking to this with, actually, I don't want to say his name because it was like a special conversation. We got brunch the other day. And he was talking about, he goes, I know how I look. I know when I get on stage, I'm this scary black guy. And I maybe, look rough around the edges. He goes, I don't have what you have, Lisa, where you can get on stage and you're like that girl next door. He goes, I'm intimidating and it's not natural for me to like be friendly. And he talked about how he feels like what he can and can't talk about. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, just be funny. And like, not jokingly, like haters gonna hate. He gets a lot of hate. And I'm like, yeah, but are you making them laugh? And I gave him some tips and, things like, hey, I noticed when you get on stage, the first thing you do is you alienate the audience. And I said, you can say, and I gave him the example, like another African-American comic who I'm like, he, for some reason, he can play that card. I can't put my finger on it. You guys could say the exact same thing when you get on stage. He gets away with it. It's not alienating. You say it and it just feels like more of an attack. And we kind of talked about the difference where this other guy we're talking about is more almost like he kind of has this like sitcom character. He really like plays things up. Whereas my friend I'm talking about, again, not saying his name just in case, but like he's just, like you said, he's not this chipper dude. He's not really like getting into a character. He's just trying to keep it real.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not that this other guy isn't. Everyone's keeping it real on stage, right? But it's to a degree of like, in the same way Amy Schumer, people used to give her a lot of shit because they're like, are you really this dumb girl? She's like, no, it was a character. And that was one of the first questions I ever got asked. I think it was like my first night at Sisyphus. Someone's like, oh, so like, have you thought about like, are you going to be a character on stage or are you going to be yourself? As if it was like a choice I had to make right then.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so
Weird.
Not the right way to approach it.
right.
Correct?
You could argue
Okay.
maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking, I want to say it was Chloe Radcliffe. She and I were talking a bit about that too. I think it was like my third time ever, and it was at Bunny's. And she was just getting ready to move to New York. And so I'm bummed we didn't cross paths sooner. But she, if you guys don't know her, she was like the girl who was like on every show here, just like,
Really?
Raised herself to the top of the scene. And now like, it's very early to move to New York after 3 years, but she's pursuing her comedy dream in New York City, and she's crushing it. But anyway, she talked to me about that too. She's like, have you thought about it? Are you going to be like full authentically Lisa on stage, or are you going to try and like play up this character?
I think it goes back to what you kind of said in that article that you read of how life's not about following your passion. It's about finding that problem that you want to solve over and over again, and how much comedy plays into that. And like, just from never standing up on the stage and just following Declan for the past 4 months, and then hearing about all the other people he's engaged with, and listening to Brendan Schaub and Theo Von and Joe Rogan and all those guys. Like, I listen to their podcast every single day, all of those guys. So I'm like invested in a comedy without even doing stand-up comedy. How much the math and the science that you've talked about right in the beginning of the show is in place in every single bit that you do, and how thoughtful it is. Like, people think that it's just going up there and like trying to be funny. No, the people that are good at comedy have so much thought in that goes into it, and it truly comes from like their inside. Like they love what they're talking about, and it's incredible when you can find an entertainer that has that ability to just light up a room through laughter. That is, I think, one of the coolest attributes to have in like your Rolodex of skills, to make someone laugh, like make a room full of people laugh. What?
It's the coolest sensation in the entire world. aside from like that privacy of the living room with your fake microphone and writing that joke and being like kind of having that aha, because like your intuition gets better the longer you do it. You just get a better sense for what will work. I would say that stays in a safe zone, right? Because I still write things where I'm like, oh, I have no idea, I have not a clue, and that is still what I would say I struggle with. I'm scared to try a lot of that material. I kind of stay in that zone of like, nah, I got a good feeling. Like there are times where like I'll go on at Sisyphus or CCU and it's like all new material and comics are like, dude, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, but stage time is precious. They're like, you should be hitting mics enough where stage time is not precious. You should be grinding and saving your best stuff for these mics. But again, life and balance, I still haven't mastered that.
Sure.
And a lot of people in the community, they like I always get made fun of. They're like, oh, I always forget you have like a big kid job. I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm not hitting up Galactic or Terminal after Sisyphus every Thursday. I can't afford to get home at 2 a.m.
And wake up the next day, it's 7 or 8, go to work. Yeah.
Yeah, the irony is I have the worst insomnia, so I'm usually up that late anyways.
Dang. Yeah.
But, where were
Anyways, you were...
Anyway. We were talking about... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we could transition with that as well, but there's some things with the back pocket wants to get into.
The core
Yeah.
We got
questions.
some core
dude.
questions that we like to ask. We
Back
sent
to our
you-
roots.
Back to our roots. It's taken a while to get there because I love what we were talking about,
Yeah.
and I don't want to break stride, but it needs to be mentioned. So the first question we always ask, that's a back pocket core question, is what's your average quality? And we framed it to you kind of off air. It's what you do well at times and other times not so well.
Mm-hmm.
So Lisa, what would be your average quality?
I got 2 for you. I wasn't sure if you wanted like physical and mental emotional, so I've got both.
Okay.
First one, I'm the world's most average softball player. You put me on your rec team league, I will be very inconsistent. But when I shine, and when I'm bad, you're going to want to kick me off the team.
But you have your moments.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I played for 11 years.
What?
And
11 years?
In rec league softball?
the Brooklyn Center Softball Association doesn't exactly have it didn't recruit. Let's just say if anyone had potential in my neighborhood, they played in the Champlin Dayton leagues. I had the coaches who like reluctant. I didn't learn how to line my knuckles until my 10th year playing because I finally played on like a more competitive team. I became better in that 10th year than I ever did the years leading up to it.
Wow.
And I was inconsistent hitting the ball because I didn't know you're supposed to line your knuckles because
yeah.
no one taught me for 10 years.
You just flying off the seat of your pants playing softball.
Yes.
What position were you playing? Kind of probably everywhere, but where did you find you like
Utility.
Yeah.
I was usually pitcher and second.
Really? Okay.
Nice.
And then when I played on that competitive...
Second is scary, by the way. Balls come in hot.
I think shortstop is scariest.
Worst. That's the toughest position to
Tough,
play.
yeah.
Yes.
And first, because you always got to be like, oh, I got to catch up. But
Yeah, and you got to lean. You got to get those
Yeah.
like flexibility, like stretches. First
Yeah.
base is tough.
second is the shins. I always had shin bruises. But when I played on this team, they were like a family. They'd been playing together their whole life. So I was just straight up right field, like, or the bench.
Yes.
My mom even, she's like, I had a talking with your coach. And I was like, no, don't stir the pot. And then she was like, he told me that you're just as good, if not better, as the girl who plays second, but he can't do that because they're like family. I'm like, Mom, shut up. Don't ruin this for me.
Yes.
I don't even know how to run bases, to be honest. I played softball for 4 years and like beer league softball for 4 years, and do not know how to make that happen.
Yeah.
So I'm screwed.
We can work on it.
Yeah, it's just no, don't worry. Sam.
Okay.
Anybody, like, that's so funny. I love that average quality. What's your other one?
My other one, we're getting a little deep here. I would say my average quality is like loving myself and working through what I'm confident and not confident in. Like, I would say if there was a go-to example, it'd be like looking in the mirror being like, I'm kind of cute, and then you turn the cheek, all right, just at that angle, you know? Like, just this like inconsistency of loving myself. And no, I'm not referring to the fake microphone. I'm great at that, but like it's it's the self-confidence thing. And like even just last night I ran into Ira Ford at Top 10 Liquors, and I walk in, he's like, Lisa Evanson, and then he helped me find some wine for me, my friend that night. This was last night. And then as I'm checking out, he's like, oh, if I can't do this show, do you want my spot? And I was like, what's the date? And I was like, oh, sorry, that's when my Bible study team, like, you know, kicks back up. And he looked at me. He went from like smiling to like dead serious. He's like, Bible study? I thought you were Jewish. And everyone
How do you respond to that?
Everyone working there and everyone in line just like looked to see how I would react. And I looked at him, and Ira is a big, tall black man. And I said, Ira, is it because of my nose? Because that's racist. And then I walked out.
I love that because I know Ira and he's funny as hell. And like to everyone else, you're like, geez, that's a tough story. But like comics, like that's family. That's
family.
That's
That's
just
family.
family, dude. That's hilarious.
That was my upbringing.
That's incredible. I think comedy for you is what's in your back pocket. So I was gonna ask this question, but I think we know the answer. It's like
Let's see what her answer is.
Yeah.
Don't
we'll
put
ask
words in her mouth.
I won't put words in her mouth. I just
We're
think
close, but we're not that close.
Yeah.
Good point.
You
I shouldn't have said it then.
You don't know the
My
flavor.
whole point was just like you're using comedy to like really be confident in what you're trying to do with your life and like yourself. You're using like the self-confidence is what you need in comedy to be funny a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And now that's just an active weekly practice for you now.
It's true. And of like all industries, right? Comedy is that one space where I think it's okay to look however you want to look because you can play that up, right? Like every time. So fun fact, I actually went so far as to Google and then drive to a plastic surgery clinic. This was maybe 2 years ago to look into like get evaluated for rhinoplasty because I was like at this breaking point.
Oh man.
And what's funny is I get there and he's like, oh, and he's like touching me. He's like, you have really bad skin. He's like, I don't even know if you would notice a difference because your skin is so thick and porous. And then I was like, dude, like you're not helping the original reason I'm even here. And then he's like, you know what I would do for free if you got this and a chin implant, I'd give you free whatever the word is for when they like suck the fat out of your neck. And I just
liposuction. I don't know.
And I was like and I started to cry. And then he goes, so if you're really serious about this, I'd like to see you not crying because clearly it's still an emotional thing for you and I really need people in a good headspace. And I was like, dude, no. I was like, just get me out of here. Yeah. And I walk out and the lady at the front, she's like, how was your experience? And like we're talking and I like start to walk out. She's like, oh ma'am, that'll be $75. Yeah, for the evaluation.
For the constants. Oh my God. First off, that guy stinks.
Oh, and he also called out my ears. I was like, dude, this is the worst decision I've ever made because now I can't. Yeah.
What a loser.
That guy sucks.
I know that's like his job and like that's what he's like supposed to, but what a low life.
Right.
Yeah.
So I bring up that story because that's where I was 2 years ago, right? Like, and we live in this world of social media where like we can get to those breaking points to the point where I was like, would I rather save up this money for vacation or shell out $8,000 for a nose job? And then like doing comedy has been the most fulfilling thing and rewarding thing because I realized like I can just be who I am on stage and people, they want to know if you're funny and they want to hang out with you no matter what you look like. And Declan, you can attest to this, and Andrew, like just from going to the shows, people come in all shapes, sizes, colors, backgrounds, walks of life, styles, deliveries, ambitions, all over. And it's the most beautiful thing. And like almost every night, I say a prayer. I'm like, thank you, God, for getting me into comedy because it's wonderful.
Oh my God, my hair's standing up
that
when
is,
I say that type of stuff because that is an awesome moment.
That's incredible. Like that is so true, and it's awesome to hear that. And just like a quick example was your fire in your house and then the LASIK, how you just got LASIK and you literally did a show a bit with your LASIK fast sunglasses on. I wish we had the picture. We should pull it up or something so Andrew could see it, but it is hysterical and just kind of reinforces the whole point of like, hey, you can go up however you want to look. This is a great example of just like send it, dude. And that was one of your funnier bits that I saw. So
I appreciate that.
That was hilarious.
Appreciate that. I think and I want to bring up this next one because it was like, you know, hairs raised for me when I heard it. I was texting with Corey because like literally if I miss Sisyphus, I have the worst FOMO and I will text Corey. I'm like, how's the show? Or I'll text you. Like the last like 2 weeks I haven't been able to go and I was like, dude, was it packed? Who was there? Send me a picture of the list. Like I just want to know what went on. But so one of those nights I was asking Corey how the show was and he's like, oh yeah, I was really busy. A lot of resolutioners. So like it having been January, people like have that on their bucket list. And I was like, I have a random question. Oh yeah, he's like, a lot of them probably won't stick around. I was like, I have a random question for you. Like, are you surprised that I stuck around? And he goes, I always knew you had like the potential and that you should. I just didn't know if you wanted to. And then he goes, but I knew when that changed. He goes, I know this set, then I knew you're going to stick around. I was like, whoa, what was that? And he goes, it's when you came in and you did New Kids, which is a 10-minute set. It was my first 10-minute set. He goes, you had just been laid off the day before. You came in and you crushed venting. And that to me was so, my mind was blown. And I'd never been so touched before because we talk about styles. I've never felt like I'm not a Bill Burr. I'm not like angry venting style. And even if you watch the video, it's on YouTube, I'm not like getting angry, but I'm like step by step recounting this thing that had just happened the day prior. And my first 4 minutes were about getting laid off. And then I kept shaping that. I kept fine tuning it. And that was like the magnum opus of my material up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so grateful I'd been laid off because I really was like I was struggling tapping into like realness and bringing me on stage. And we talked about the voice thing. I was like, why was that laughter so, it was the most electric performance I've had. And I was like, oh, I think I'm tapping into something, because when I wrote that, I would compare it to like when you write a wedding speech and like you kind of know where jokes will go, but it's just so natural. You're writing about someone you know and love. I was writing about this experience that I was close to, and it was so natural for me to write about, and then so personal and tell it in that conversational style that then Corey was like, yeah, that was you tapping into your style. And he goes, it's the dragon we all chase, and you're going to keep on chasing it.
Mm.
Dude, it's the problem you're going to keep trying to solve.
Yeah.
Oh, man. This is getting so deep.
How cool is it that Corey was just like that thoughtful to like give you that type of response? Because that's so meaningful when someone can truly tap into your comedy career and say, this is when I actually saw like, hey, you're real. Like this is your real passion, and it's showing.
Corey is the reason why in 2011, to never have done it again, I did well. And I did probably even better my second time. But the difference is that in 2011, no one came up to me after the show and like reaffirmed what had just happened. After my first time at Sisyphus, Corey came up to me, and you know him, Declan. He's not like a, like
he's not your giddy guy.
No, he's not going to gas you up for no reason. He's a great guy, though. He pulled me aside after the show, and he like looked me square in the eye, and he goes, "You are funny. You have what it takes." Like he went through this whole spiel. He's like, "You have what it takes, Lisa. Like you can make it. Whether one time or 100 times, you are a stand-up comic now. I want to see you at New Kids. I want you." And he like went through the whole list of like what I needed to keep doing, and then he gave me one critique. He goes, "You can kind of tell you're kind of like gassing yourself up like before a joke," and that was just the nerves. But like he's like, I wanna see you back. That is the reason I'm still doing comedy, because the nerves were still, oh my God, they were so horrible that first time. I was so sick. I had to leave client meetings that like early that day because I had to go to the bathroom. Like I had to pop like 2 Imodium just to get on stage. I almost passed out. I almost blacked out. It was a blessing and a curse to have a lot of friends there because it added to the pressure, but I also felt supported and loved. And but it took me another month to get back on stage because I was like, why would I put myself through that again? And then I kept thinking about what Corey had told me, and I was like, whoa, I know he doesn't just say that to anyone. I need to, right? We talk about the self-confidence thing. I'm like, I had to have this moment with myself where I'm like, he wasn't just being nice. So I need to take that for the value that it is and keep getting after it.
That's awesome. Lisa, your story has been awesome. We're running out of time.
Okay.
We have 2 final questions. So first off,
I'll breeze through them.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Like this has been incredible. You're coming back on the show because this is the most this is one of the more casual feelings I've ever had for the Marketing Intern Spotlight. Like all of them are tremendous. I'm not knocking anything, but like just this talking comedy, I don't get to do it all the time because I'm not involved with it. But learning and hearing your story just like snaps all around.
Thank you,
awesome.
guys.
Yeah. If I could boil it down to just one word though, like this last 5 minutes, kindness. Andrew and I were talking last night about how you did a activity at work about
brainstorm for a company.
Yeah. So it was
making kindness contagious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like, what's one kind act that someone did for you when you were little? And like, what was that one kind act? And it's still stuck with you. Like Corey went the distance and made a kind act for you, or like was kind to you. and that propelled you to where you are now.
Yep.
And we all have those stories.
Crushed
Ooh,
it,
I
dude.
like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
We all
yeah.
have those
Mhm.
stories of those kind acts that people do for us.
Yes.
We all need to be kinder to each other.
Mhm.
I'm so not kidding right now. Like, we just need to spread more love. And that's why I'll never forget, someone told me, I overheard someone saying they thought I was kind of fake because I'm like always complimenting people, and they thought that was my way of like schmoozing people. And I was like, dude, I've been given compliments that were just on the fly or something. And that person will never know that I think back to it. And it helps me when I'm looking in that mirror and I'm feeling down on myself to be like, no, someone felt the need to say that to me. It must be true.
Yes.
And that's why I'm always trying to pass that along.
It's awesome. Oh, man. Okay.
We need like 8 hours.
Yeah. That's
We-
why we'll have her on again.
Yeah.
But let's get to these 2 questions.
Yeah.
First one is, we're trying to challenge ourselves with this season and get on guests that we didn't think were possible. Is there someone that you think we should tap into? You're like, oh, this guy or woman would be tremendous to have on our show.
Shoot. You didn't prepare me for this one,
You
I
can
know,
Declan.
thi-
sorry.
Think offline and get back to us if you want
Yeah.
to take it that route too.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
If you had to think, let me ask you, is there one area of life that you would love to find someone, whether it's like a certain industry or with a certain one-off experience? Is there someone that you're trying to get on in a special area?
I think it boils down to personalities and people that would want to share their story, and maybe they don't feel comfortable doing it on a podcast, but we'll help make it comfortable. Someone that you think has a sweet story. They don't have to be super famous. They could be someone that's
Right in your backyard.
Right in
like
your
a
backyard, your
someone that
neighbor.
has like someone that you love,
Yes.
right? Someone that you truly care about. If you have someone like that you think other people should care about and hear,
'cause that's who we want on our show.
that's who we want on our show.
Mhm.
Ooh, you know who I've only met her once. We became Insta friends, and then we finally met Hillary Klein. I
Okay.
think she and I share similar experiences in terms of like how people have treated us and like the girls we were in school and whatnot.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
I definitely have a supportive family, and like that's one thing she and I talked about. She's like crushing it in her career. She does like she's on the news all the time for like their makeup sessions and whatnot, and does
Okay.
like runway stuff. And
Hillary Klein.
Hillary Klein,
Okay.
I think she'd be really great, and she can really
Is
speak.
she local?
Yeah, she's local.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
We'll look into that.
yeah.
And then the last question is, what did you learn today from the moment you woke up to when we're having this conversation?
I learned today that, I love so much that you guys are all about, like, we're just wildly average. You guys are the epitome of the difference between someone looking at their phone in their bedroom with jealousy of someone doing something with their lives and being like, I'm funnier than them. I could do that. What's the difference? Taking action. You guys took action. And here you are. And I remember I loved your Instagram story where someone left a 1-star review that was like, and you're like, dude, I just give us the feedback. Like, you guys are so hungry to improve.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between you and people being like, I could be doing that. You just took the first step, and you've been taking moving is better than not moving at all.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Momentum.
I've learned that like just taking the step. And for me right now, it's saying yes to every show. I just booked my first 15-minute show.
Hell
And
yeah.
Congrats.
I got to
Where at,
curate
by the
that
way, so
ish.
people can go and
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually at K90s on March 1st. It's like sugar, spice, and almost everything nice. It's another all-female lineup. You guys should come to
We'll be there.
Ollie Sultan's album recording. I'll be opening for him, one of the openers, on the 20. The recording is the 22nd and the 23rd. I'm doing it the 23rd. You should still go the 22nd because Ahmed Khalaf, he's one of the openers. He's one of my favorites.
I love Ahmed.
And then I'm doing a show February 8th at Artworks in Egan, also with Ollie and a slew of other people.
That's February 8th
Yeah.
in Egan. Okay.
Mhm.
And if people want to find you on social or anywhere, do you want to plug your Instagram handle or anything?
Yeah.
along
Oh,
those lines?
one more thing.
Mhm.
Friday, February 15th, tune in. I will be a guest host for a morning from 7 to 9 a.m. on Go 96.3.
Congrats.
So-
Right on.
Thank you. So
Yes.
That'll
tune
be
in
dope.
that morning. This was like great practicing and just like
Mhm.
free flowing. So thank you for that.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, social plug, Instagram. It's Lisa Marie, but Lisa Leesaw Marie.
That'll be in the show notes.
In the show notes, you'll see it.
Cool. I don't mess with Twitter that much, but still, it's Lisa, but instead of an L, it's a 7, so it's 7 ISA.
Great.
No worries. Sweet, dude.
Awesome. Well,
Hell
that's a
yeah.
wrap. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks, guys.
Well, I've been hanging on the west coast in my heart, right where I meant to from the start. It's so much warmer than the secrets you've been holding in. And don't you look at me sideways with those eyes, always acting like you ain't got the time. I can't imagine trying to carry what you hold inside. But ooh, you got a reason to sing. And ooh, you're finally listening. And ooh, you should go back to the start, 'cause you can't hold on to